I'm going to cut this video. If you like it, please like and share. And if you haven't followed me on YouTube, I'd appreciate that. I'm trying to get to 1,000 people. I'm close, but still not there. I'm going to go on to the last one. So I'm going to talk about what's on my head. Dtravel. I get a lot of abuse, so many people abuse me over this token. Yeah, I'm gonna share one. It's so funny. I don't mind sharing abuse. It's the story of my life, huh? Brother, you're actually crazy. This shit is dead. From Crypto Steve. No animosity. It's all you know, like it's all good vibes. Yeah, I'm here for good vibes. Crypto Steve. We all have our different opinions, and he's obviously a trader and he has his own he does his own stuff. No judgmentalism, nothing. Yeah, and I don't mind people criticizing or commenting or giving their 2 cents. I really don't mind that. Yeah, I am a little bit crazy. I'm a little bit mad. That's the truth. I replied, it's not, everything is changing. All right. So I'm going to address this in a little bit more detail. Everyone is looking at TRVL, looking at the charts and freaking out. Yeah, freaking out. I'm not freaking out. Yeah, not because of what I know, but I do know a lot of stuff, but because of the history. For me, the history is really important. I just wanted to kind of go for a lot of people who've kind of followed my stream. They've got a bit of TRVL. They like Dtravel. They like the idea of the project. There's, you know, they like to get some more information about what's going on. I do talk a lot, so I apologize. I like to go into depth. I don't plan these streams. I just talk. And here I am. I'm just talking about Dtravel and TRVL. When I go to the launch and go back to the launch of TRVL, I'm going to go to the MEXC chart. You see here it launched. We'll go to the weekly time frame. You see here it launched on the 22nd of November 21, and now we are on the 8th of December 25, week of the 8th of December 25. Okay, so this token has been trading now for how many weeks? Does it tell me? Can I figure it out like that? No, that's the wrong one. Whatever. It's been trading for 4 years now. 4 years. Just over 4 years, hasn't it? And as you can see, when it launched at 9 cents, it went up all the way up to 1.56. That's the all-time high. And ever since, the token has dropped to its current place, 99.85%. So if you bought this token on the day of the launch, you've pretty much lost all your value, pretty much. What's going on? What's happened? Has this token crashed? Well, look, why has this token crashed? I'll tell you what, guys, I only got involved in this project at around January, February here, when the token was trading somewhere between 14 to 8 cents to 20 cents. Yeah, I got involved here. I wasn't involved in the launch. I wasn't involved in any of that. Yeah, so if people have any kind of bad sentiment towards me, I apologize, but I wasn't involved in the launch. I wasn't involved in any of that. I got involved later, and the reason why I got involved, and it's a very pertinent reason why, is because I'm an Airbnb host. Actually, I'm an Airbnb superhost. This is me. I've been doing it for 10 years, more actually, and I have properties in London, and I was intrigued by the idea of a decentralized peer-to-peer style Airbnb. I thought it was correct. Like, in my imagination, I thought, yeah, if there's a team out there wanting to do this, I want to be part of it. Because one thing that I haven't gained as an Airbnb superhost is the growth, the value growth of Airbnb. Like Airbnb's got richer and richer and richer, and they're making shit tons of money. But ultimately what's happened is that the hosts have been punished. Yeah. And we haven't got richer. It's become harder. It was a lot easier to do Airbnb 10 years ago than it is now. A lot easier. Airbnb were much kinder towards hosts. There was less competition, and it was just easier. There was less eyes on people hosting in their homes. Now you have regulations, you have local governments, you have Airbnb's been banned, and then Airbnb's punishes hosts and delists hosts, and they'll do all kinds of weird and, dare I say it, bad stuff, which is constantly causing people to lose their businesses and their livelihoods, because the reality is that my business, my reviews, my businesses are at the mercy of Airbnb's decision. If they decide tomorrow that they want to delist me, they can. Yeah. If they want to delete me, they can. And I can't do anything about it. There's no process which allows me to continue my businesses. So I like the idea of a decentralized Airbnb, and that's why I got involved. I wasn't involved at the beginning. And for people, if people don't realize this, and I just want you to kind of, you go back to YouTube and you do a search for Dtravel. You should do this because it's good to do your research. Let's have a look at Dtravel. And you can go back and have a look and see. Look at this. The CEO, the previous CEO was this lady, Cynthia Huang. Okay. She was the CEO, and actually she wasn't the CEO. She used to be someone else. Let me see if I can find it. We have to go back further, huh? Let me see if I can do that. I saw it the other day, but I haven't, I don't usually prepare these videos. Upload date. No. Sort by upload date. That's better. And then how do we do it? We want to go oldest. We want to go to the oldest. Oh, that doesn't work. Can we scroll back? No, we wanted to go the other way around. Oh shit. I actually don't know how to do this. But she wasn't the CEO, okay? She was something else. And I saw it in a video. Let me see if I go to the Dtravel page. Maybe I'll find it there. Head of growth. Do you see that? What is the difference between Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3?
First of all, what is Web 3? So I'm not sure if some of you have seen this slide before, but the idea is that Web 1 was really about the YouTube.
Anyway, I don't need to go through this video, but that's her. That's Cynthia.
Booking.com, Airbnb.
Huang. She was the former CEO, and she wasn't even the CEO. So when you go to this video and you look at it, oh, where did it go? You see that? It says there, head of growth. Do you see that? Head of growth, head of growth, head of growth, head of growth. So she was made the CEO. And that's I just want to give you some history. She was the head of growth, and then she became, why did she become the CEO? Because she was also an Airbnb host. Okay. And she also had a forum for Airbnb hosts on Facebook. It was quite a large forum, and they didn't have a CEO at the time. The CFO was a gentleman called Drew. He was the CFO of Travala. And so the history of Dtravel is that Travala had a problem with short rentals. So Travala, if you don't know them, you can go to their website, Travala, have a look, and it's basically some sort of Expedia but for crypto. And they had a shortage of vacation rentals, and so they decided to create one, and they invested into a new project called Dtravel. They wanted to make it decentralized, and they did that, but they didn't have a CEO. And what happened was that the CFO, he left Travala and he became the CFO of Dtravel. but we didn't have a CEO. Okay. And they organized a whole bunch of people, lots of people with lots of different experiences in the fields, and they brought them all together and they said, this is what we want to do, let's do it. So it wasn't like one person's vision. No one person had a vision for the future. It was basically Travala saying, we have a shortage of vacation rentals. We want to do something. We want to do something in terms of Web3. That's why Cynthia was made the CEO, because she had the grasp of the difference between Web 2, Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3. And also she was a host. And I guess for reasons that I don't understand, I wasn't there. I wasn't involved. They made her, or Drew and others made her the CEO. Okay. It wasn't, not one person had a vision for the future of what Dtravel was going to look like. It was basically, let's put a whole team together. Let's say we want to make a decentralized Airbnb, and that's it. They didn't have a plan for the tokenomics. They didn't have a plan for growth. All they knew was that there was a need, or they felt like there was a need, and they were just going to inject a little bit of investment and try and make it happen. And that's how Dtravel was born. All right. And Cynthia and Drew, they were named the founders or the co-founders, but the reality was that she wasn't there from the beginning either. That's just the reality. Well, not from the beginning. The beginning was, it came from Travala. Okay, whoever was at Travala, probably the CFO and the CEO, they said, hey, we have a good idea, let's do this. And they injected some capital. And so what happened was, they had this idea, they launched it onto the exchanges, and to launch on exchanges, what you need is capital. And they injected the capital. They got some of their friends, they got the investors in, they paid the launch fees, they launched it on 4 exchanges pretty much at the same time: Bybit, Mexi, Gate.io, and KuCoin. And they launched at 9 cents, but the seed price, or the investor price, was 2 cents. So all of the people who were involved in TRVL pre-launch were bought in at 2 cents. And they launched at the height of the Bitcoin bear market, at the top of the last Bitcoin bull market, so the beginning of the bear market. They launched at literally the worst possible time. Effectively, it was a massive fundraise. Effectively, okay. I'm just telling you the history of Dtravel and TRVL. If you didn't know this, I'm just telling you what's happened, okay. And the price of Dtravel, TRVL, for the seed investors, it went up 7,000% in one day, or 1 week. Yeah. And naturally, when the price of your token, when you buy like $10,000 worth of TRVL and it goes up 7,000%, what is that? Let's say you bought let's say you're a seed investor and you bought $10,000 worth of TRVL at 2 cents. And it goes up 7,000%. I'm just doing a calculator. That means you've turned your $10,000 into $700,000. You sell. That's what happened. That's the history of the beginning of Dtravel. It was just an idea. So when I got involved with Dtravel, it was about February time, somewhere here. The price of TRVL was already down from the all-time high. It was already down like 89–90%. Okay. Why did I get involved? Because when I got involved, I saw I liked the idea, and I realized that they hadn't built anything. Nothing was built. There was no network. There was nothing. It was basically nothing. It was just an idea. It was an idea, and they had managed to launch a token and raise capital. That's what Dtravel did. They launched it and raised capital, and that capital was the burn money to build this idea, was to build this Airbnb killer. And that's the beginning in the history of Dtravel. But the problem, and I've talked about this in the past, and I'm just going to go back to it. The problem was that this wasn't one person's baby. This wasn't one person's vision. No one really knew what they were doing. They just said, hey, you know what? We'll just take down Airbnb. Let's do it. Yeah. Crypto. Yeah. Let's just, whatever. That's what happened. But they didn't know what they were doing. They just did it as it was going on. Yeah. They had some ideas. They knew how Travala worked. They knew that Travala was working. Yeah. So they had a little bit of a blueprint, but they wanted to make it decentralized. And so what they were thinking, the original people at Dtravel were thinking was, hey, let's make TRVL like Ava. Let's make it a rewards program. And that will be enough to attract all of the market. And what we learned is that as the network was building, and so because I was involved from quite early on, and because I was a successful Airbnb host and superhost, yeah, I also was one of the first handful of properties on Dtravel. So I launched my properties on Dtravel 3.5 years ago, and in August 22, you see Skift and some other news sites reports on Dtravel claims the first short rental booking using blockchain and smart contracts. And guess what? It was in London, and it was, I can't read it, huh? Anyway, it was on my property in London. Yeah, so let me see if I can find it here. Here it is. Dtravel makes its first booking via smart contracts August the 5th. And you see that was me. Okay, so I was number one. The firm's first booking was conducted for a London apartment owner named Emir Sajadi. And so I launched my properties on Dtravel a month earlier in July 22. And in terms of timelines, it took Dtravel, from when I got involved, it took them a good part of 4 or 5 months to build the first version of what you now see, where people could actually log on and book. And so that's what happened. I was in the first handful of properties that went online, and I was the first property on the Dtravel network to process the first booking. It was a week in London. They paid using USDC on the Binance blockchain. That's the history of the beginning of Dtravel. And it was actually this apartment here, this one. It was a 3-bedroom apartment. They came for a wedding, actually. Nice people, very nice people. They loved it. They loved the idea. So there was a lot of excitement back then, a lot of excitement. And when you look at June Analytics, only came in a couple of years ago, and that's where you can see the live stats of our real world network. And back then, it was basically 50 listings. As I'm just imagining back then, because this didn't exist back then. Maybe 10 listings, whatever. Maybe 100 operator signups. Maybe one city, maybe one country or 2 countries, whatever. 5 cities. It was really small. We'd just begun right at the beginning. And you see these June Analytics only come into play at the beginning of March 23. And you see the GMV back then was 55K. So it was much lower. So it took some time to build this. And the vision that the CEO, Cynthia, had with the rest of the people involved was, let's take down Airbnb. Let's take down Airbnb. But there was no plan for the tokenomics. There was no plan for anything else. They didn't have a real idea of how to bring travelers to our network. And they thought that if we just give people a 3% token gift back, that would be enough. So there was a 3% fee to use Dtravel, but they would give it back in TRVL. And they thought that was enough. That would be enough to attract the masses. And what we realized, or what I was noticing a couple of years ago, 2 years ago, is that it wasn't working. When you look at the graph, you see that 2 years ago, so the end of 23, beginning of 24, we only had 1,500 active listings. Yeah. It just wasn't growing fast enough in the context of the Bitcoin bull market. And when you go back to the charts, you can see that as the Bitcoin bull market was beginning in October, it was called October, TRVL actually made an all-time low. Okay. And what I noticed was there just wasn't enough growth. There wasn't enough demand. And every time the price of the token pumped, and the first warning signs were here, it pumped, and you see it dumped. And not only did it dump, put in an all-time low. And so this is what I talk about when I talk about the market. When you put in a new low, that means the market is balanced to the downside for sales, to the sell side. It means there's more sellers than buyers. So in the price action from here to here, in that time period, so it's about a year. No, it's less than a year. It's 10 months. In 10 months, there are more sellers than buyers. So people are actually leaving TRVL, not coming to TRVL. And in the context of the Bitcoin market, bull market just about to begin, you don't want to put another low. You want to put a higher low. If you put in a higher low, it means actually there are more buyers than sellers, and that makes much more sense in the context of a bull market. So that was our first flag. That was our first big red flag. When that red flag happened, I notified the team. I told them, hey, there's something going on here. This shouldn't be happening. Yeah, we need to do something, because what you're going to end up with is a pump and dump token. That's, I told them that. This was November 2023. I had a video call with the CEO and others, and I said, hey, we're in trouble. We have to do something. And they said, what do you suggest? Because that back then we weren't looking at a large network. We weren't looking at exponential, explosive network growth. And behind the scenes, I told them, hey, I think we need to change the tokenomics. And so they said, well, what are your suggestions? And I submitted to them a document. Called the Amir Rewards Ecosystem Proposal Updates. I submitted this to them in, I think it was December. Yeah, you see they put comments here, December. They took this document from me and they gave me no feedback. I never saw the document for 1 year and 2 months. They took it and they just sat on it. They commented on it. I didn't see any of these comments. I only saw these comments at the beginning of this year, beginning of 25, when someone sent it to me. And my idea was this. My idea was, let's just copy Bitcoin. Let's literally just copy Bitcoin. At the time, there was 300 million in circulation. I said, hey, let's lock up the 700 million into a mining pool for block rewards. And I explained my idea, and I said, let's replicate Bitcoin and let people booking and traveling compete for TRVL on a month-by-month basis based on network activity. So effectively tying the growth and the value of the network to the rewards. Whereas at the current time, they were giving everyone 3% back in TRVL, and that's it. So they took my ideas and they made they sat on it for 4 months, and then they released what is the current Dtravel tokenomics. So if you go to Dtravel now, you go and have a look at the documentation. Go and have a look at the tokenomics. And this is what they came up with. This was launched in March 24. Okay. And they basically, in a gist, they ignored my idea. They came up with something completely different. And this is what they came up with. They came up with a really intricate and yet complicated idea. And at the time I told them, hey, it's too complicated. No one's going to understand. But I didn't make a fuss, because I was like, okay, they've done it now. Let's see what happens. Yeah. This was March 24. And they launched it as TRVL was here. And then after that, we just saw a sell-off. That's how the market reacted. That's when it was launched. They launched it, and it basically ended up being exit liquidity for whoever was selling. And then the token crashed another 75%. Okay, so the market didn't accept the proposal effectively. And that's what this means. Okay, and all of this up pressure was anticipation of the tokenomics. You see that? So from the all-time low in October 23, we were talking about the tokenomics. It was basically around December time 23. That's when we were making a hurrah in the Telegram. Everyone was expecting tokenomics, 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 launch, sell. That's what happened. That's effectively what happened. the market didn't accept the tokenomics, but I've got evidence, and I'm just showing you now that they just did not implement my idea. These are ideas, yeah, and I actually just came up with this in half an hour. I'm not saying this is correct. I'm just saying it was an idea. I submitted this idea December 23. All right. But what I do want to highlight is some comments. And this person is now no longer with Dtravel. He was one of the leaders of the previous leadership team. And look at what he writes as a comment to my ideas. He says, even in Bitcoin, where the supply is theoretically quite elastic, simply the fact that not too many people knew about Bitcoin in the beginning led to a high concentration of BTC among a few people who were early adopters and who became BTC billionaires, thanks to the fact that BTC succeeded anyway. This also contributed to the proliferation of other L1s, because between joining Bitcoin, where a few users already detained a large chunk of BTC supply, and creating their own blockchains, many communities preferred the latter. So simply replicating Bitcoin's model is likely to create similar problems. And so what's interesting is that he's talking about the problems, but not the fact that people became billionaires. And he actually say the early adopters became rich, became BTC billionaires. He's saying that that's because BTC succeeded anyway. But actually, when you go to Bitcoin and you go to the charts and you have a look at the charts of Bitcoin, to do that, you have to go to the index. This is the index. You'll see that the price of Bitcoin only went up even before it succeeded. You see in January the 10th, 2010, it went up. You see that? It had nothing, Bitcoin going up had nothing to do with the success of Bitcoin. It was 100% based on the Bitcoin tokenomics. It's got nothing to do with the sixth. Bitcoin is only, if you want to, arguably, Bitcoin has only really succeeded in the last 3 or 4 years, or 3 years, or even last year, with the mainstream adoption, with the Wall Street adoption, with BlackRock and Coinbase and all of these companies starting to adopt Bitcoin as a real world asset as part of their asset portfolio. Yeah. Bitcoin succeeded well before then. So he was saying that these people became Bitcoin billionaires because thanks to the fact that Bitcoin succeeded anyway. Well, that's not true. He was wrong. But what is true is that people became Bitcoin billionaires. Oops, I've lost it. So let me go back to it so you can find it. Hold on. And I'm not saying all of his comments were wrong or right. And there are comments. It's not objective, is it? It's very subjective comments. Yeah. And so we all have our opinions, and I'm not saying all my opinions are right. I'm just saying that this is a PhD who is saying that these people became Bitcoin billionaires. I'm saying some of his comments are correct. And his idea that there was a danger that, and basically his point is that people became rich. Oh, look, see this? This is another point. Emir seems to be a positive exception in the driving direct bookings, and it is natural that he would want to incentivize himself. And that's the point that I was trying to make at the beginning. You need to give people who were involved in Dtravel, not just me, everyone who's involved, everyone who's held on to TRVL, everyone who's working hard to grow Dtravel, incentive, real incentive. That's how you grow Dtravel, to give them real incentive. The dream of becoming rich is a real incentive. And what we have to do is we have to look at the comments that were made. And so his point about the L1s was that people became rich and they launched other L1s, and that became competition for Bitcoin. But what we know now, looking back in history, is that Ethereum or Cardano or Solana, none of those other L1s have taken away from Bitcoin. What they've actually done is they've actually added to the whole ecosystem, the whole crypto ecosystem. They've actually added value. They've actually made the whole ecosystem exciting. It hasn't taken away from Bitcoin. It's actually brought much more to Bitcoin. And yet Bitcoin still is the granddaddy. It's the royale with cheese. It's like the master. And so I just wanted to show you that. And so back then we were talking about these tokenomics changes. I just proposed an idea. I said, let's just copy Bitcoin, basically. Let's do something like Bitcoin, and we can make it slightly more creative, just because we're not a layer 1, we're using a layer 2, and we can use we have smart contracts, and we have, we can use NFTs and other things as well. So that was the conversation that was going on, and they completely ignored my ideas. And I wasn't saying to them, hey, my ideas are right or my ideas are the best. And actually when they came out and they launched their tokenomics in March, you didn't hear anything from me. There was no critique whatsoever. And if you go to my YouTube channel, yeah, all the videos are there, going all the way back. I haven't deleted any of them. Okay. Let's have a look. I've got a playlist, Dtravel. And we've come back up. I mean, I have to go all the way down in this playlist. How long is it? Oh, can we see all of it? There it is. I'm not sure where to look. Let's go to this one. Don't know. Well, that's not it. That says 6 days ago. Just forget about the token and just focus on. There you go. What does that say? 1 year ago. No, it's more than 1 year ago. Let me see if I can pull the playlist, actually. How do I do this? I don't know. That might be better. Oh, there you go. That's better. So let me try and find it. One year ago. Oh my God, I made a lot of videos. Huh? All right. I think we're... See, look. Tokenomics, governance and marketing. Big updates soon. What else is there? Big bets on TRVL and Dtravel. Let's see if we can find it. Why to buy? Look. TRVL, why to buy? When did I post that? For the one that I've been tracking. See, 19th of February. I'm not negative at all. I'm positive. There you go. Dtravel night token, a layman's explanation, a deep dive. And you can go back and you can watch that. Yeah. Why so bullish on TRVL? An easy explanation of the fundamentals. Okay. And so even when I disagreed with the plan, even when the tokenomics was launched and it was completely different from what I had suggested, it was a complete tangent. You see, this was posted. Let me see when this was posted. 3rd of March. Yeah. I tried to support Dtravel and I didn't say anything. I didn't crash the project or do anything untoward. Yeah. I just kept on making videos, even when the price was dropping. And the reality was that I suggested a change in tokenomics. They said that, hey, if we do your tokenomics, it might make Bitcoin billionaires out of us, out of all of us, because we're all early and we'll end up having most of the tokens. And And we don't want to do that because there's a risk that other businesses will come along, because I would have got rich and other bit, or anyone who's involved in Dtravel would have got rich, and then they'll go and make another Dtravel. And the reality is that those businesses have come anyway. Yeah. And this is the other thing you have to remember. Like, look, this is AirBTC. They're coming anyway. They're coming after us anyway, regardless of what we do. It's got nothing to, and actually it's worse for us now, because now some people look at Dtravel and they go, well, Dtravel hasn't succeeded. I can come and do something better. And so actually it's the inverse of what he said. It made no difference. If we had succeeded in the first iteration of Dtravel, then we could have knocked these guys out of the park, and no one would even go to these guys and look at these guys. Okay. So that's a little bit of the history of what happened in the past with the tokenomics. And basically the recent history is this, that recently, last year, we had a period of time without a CEO, because the CEO had maternity leave. During that time, there was no interim CEO appointed. She didn't appoint an interim CEO. There's a question on how long she was off for. I estimate it was about 4 months. I think it was at least 2 months, arguably at least 2 months, but maybe 2 months part-time and then 2 months off, something like that. And during that time that the CEO was on maternity leave, the price of TRVL, look at it, it went up. It was somewhere between October and December. It went up. And guess who was in charge of Dtravel at that time? Even though the CEO had gone, vanished. Yeah, it was basically the end of September, beginning of October, all the way till December. Eric Pace, he wasn't even the CEO. There was no COO. He was just head of growth or something like that. Growth or acquisition or something to do with networking. And he was running the show. So even though he was an appointed CEO, he was effectively running the show. And then during that time, that was the price of TRVL went up, and then when the CEO came back, the price crashed. And that is the history of Dtravel. When TRVL hit the all-time low, and that was the first week of February, that's when we started having big disagreements on Telegram, because it's just not right for a token to make an all-time low consecutively in the context of a bull market. That's just not correct bullish price action. And because I was flagging this behind the scenes, and I was flagging this behind the scenes all the way back from November 23, I submitted the tokenomics, which wasn't accepted. The new tokenomics was rejected by the market, but I still supported it all the way until finally we hit a new all-time low. And this was after the CEO was on maternity leave. And for personally, I mean, everyone's allowed to do that, but personally, I think if you go on leave, you have to tell everyone. You have to be completely open about what's happening, and then you have to appoint an interim and say this is the interim CEO. But actually, just so that you know, Eric Pace was running the show and the token went up. Okay, that's how I knew he was the right person to be the CEO. Anyway, the arguments that followed on Telegram led to me leaving Dtravel. I wasn't even employed by Dtravel. I wasn't employed by Tree. I was just a host like everyone else. I'd proven the concept works. I proved the network was working. I proved the business works because I'd processed 60,000 or whatever dollars worth of transactions and 30 bookings or whatever on my properties in London with Dtravel. But the reality was that it wasn't working. People weren't attracted to Dtravel. The network wasn't growing fast enough. The business wasn't growing fast enough. And people were panicking. They were worried about the Bitcoin bear market. And so a lot of investors sold. And then once we hit all-time lows, more investors sold. Okay. What we're seeing now, okay, is a continuation of what all of that's happened. That's what we're experiencing now. Now, what's changed? Well, what's changed is that Eric, who for a short period of time was in charge and the token went up. He is now officially the CEO. The people who were initially involved in the beginning have left. So Cynthia has left. She's not part of the project anymore. She was the CEO. She's gone. Drew, who was the CFO, he's gone too. Bruno, who made those comments on this document, he's gone too. He created, this is the person, Bruno, with Cynthia, who created the tokenomics that we currently have that's being changed. And so what we're experiencing now is a continuation of that. There's no success in the previous vision. It's just a fact. And what we have now is finally, and this is what I want to come to, finally, we have someone, Eric, who has a vision, a new chapter. He's printed it here. A new chapter for Dtravel, rebuilding travel around people. You see, whereas before there was no vision, there was no grand plan, there was no idea of what we should do or how to do it. Now we have someone who has a plan, who has a vision, who really believes in this future, not because he thinks it's inevitable, this is how it's going to be, or the world is going to go this way. This is someone who wants to build something for the future, and he's printed it here, and you can go and read it on the blog. He talks about what's broken. He talks about what we're building. He talks about how we can align the incentives. He talks about why this matters, and he talks about what's coming. And so we are all still waiting for what's to come, okay? And naturally, we are really at the precipice of a new birth for Dtravel. This is where we're at right now, okay? Everything in the past, I'm just telling everyone now, it's best just to lay it out in the open. Everything that happened before that went wrong, it's over, it's finished, okay? And the reason why I came back is because I believe in Eric. I really believe in Eric. I believe he's the right person. I believe that now we're on the right track. And the truth is that I don't expect them to employ my ideas 100%. And it's not my ideas, it's a collaboration of ideas, but it's about the direction. It's about understanding the problems, and it's about the direction of travel of what we're trying to do. Whereas before they were so focused on trying to take down Airbnb, yeah, now they're focused on creating something for the future, something new for the future, using blockchain technology the way it was meant to, and creating tokenomics for the crypto community, tokenomics which people actually understand and which will actually support the growth and the expansion of the Dtravel network. And that's what they're working on right now as we speak. And so I just wanted to give you a bit of a history into that. And so I don't know if that helps people. There's no technical analysis today. Yeah. I just thought it'd be important to just explain some things and give some kind of context of the history. Now, I came back in July. I came back, I don't get paid, yeah. I came back to do my streams in July. That's when we hit a pivot low, and unfortunately we've lost the lows. We've lost the lows mainly because of the Bybit ST tag. That's what's actually caused this big sell-off. And I've explained this in my previous videos. Bybit put an ST tag on TRVL. They are aggressively going after low market cap tokens now. And it doesn't matter that we have a new CEO. It doesn't matter that we have a new vision. It doesn't matter that we've seen a significant increase in volume over the last few months. They don't give a shit. Yeah. They put an SD tag, and that's why we've experienced this sell-off. But this is an opportunity. It's an opportunity because of everything that I've said. We now have a team who fully committed to changing the tokenomics and bringing it in line with what crypto understand and what crypto wants, and the way in a way that will grow the Dtravel network. Okay, and so more to follow, more to come. Okay, more is to come. I don't have the details. Honestly, I don't have any conversations with anyone regarding the tokenomics or anything. I've just given my one input 2 years ago, and they have to come up with the ideas and figure it out, okay? Because I'm not a member of staff. I'm just here doing my little YouTube channel and hosting in London. But I just wanted to give you some kind of history of what's happening. And what I am slightly involved with is the El Salvador project. Okay, and so this is the other thing that we're talking about. It's the first initiative, and so the key point is first. You have to hone in on the word first, because this is going to be the first of many initiatives, and we will make this a success. We are going to knock this out of the park, and if and when we succeed with this project, with this initiative in El Salvador, it's going to capture the imagination not just of the people who govern El Salvador, but of anyone involved in crypto in this sector, in this area, in anyone to do with travel. It's going to be a real game-changing initiative, because, and you'll see, I can't actually say anymore. I've said enough actually, and basically I'm slightly involved with that because El Salvador is something that I've been pushing for. Not because I live there. I live in London. I want to move there in the future, but I live in London. But because I see El Salvador as an opportunity for Dtravel to capture a part of a small market, but a very important market when it comes to crypto and when it comes to future growth. And if you've ever been to El Salvador, not many people have. What you learn and understand is that it connects Guatemala with Nicaragua. And so you can't really go through that zone without going through El Salvador. People don't travel through Honduras because Honduras is unsafe. It's parts of Honduras are controlled by gangs and they still kidnap foreigners. And El Salvador has become a real safe place for tourists, really safe. And so El Salvador, when we knock this out of the park and when this succeeds, everything that follows is going to be really bullish. Everything that follows. That's kind of what I wanted to talk about today and kind of give a little bit of history about what's happening. The other thing I wanted to kind of announce, and there's a new change log. Let me just show you. So a lot of people have been asking me about why aren't we seeing Friday updates? Where are the Friday updates? We like them. Well, we don't have Friday updates anymore because we have this change log. And so all you have to do is go to feedback.dtravel.com/changelog. And here you can subscribe to the updates. And here you'll see the updates as they happen. So here you see that. November the 24th, that was the last major update. New marketing site. We relaunched a redesigned marketing site at dtravel.com to better showcase the Dtravel ecosystem. SDK version 2 release. Our updated SDK includes major improvements to the booking widget, making integration smoother and faster. Here you can comment on it, etc. You see that? Stripe Connect Express expansion. Hosts in Vietnam, El Salvador, South Africa, India, and several other regions can now accept fiat payments via Stripe Connect Express. See that? El Salvador. So you see now the puzzles are starting to connect. You see that? See, Stripe has now offered support for El Salvador. This is a big deal. The other thing I wanted to show you, which is really important, is that Stripe USDT, oh, not Stripe, Stripe. Stripe is now accepting crypto payments, I think. I saw that somewhere. So Stripe has opened up a public testnet for stablecoin payments. And Stripe is actually the plugin that we use to accept fiat to process decentralized bookings on Dtravel. And so they are also going down the stablecoin route where people will be able to pay using USDC on Stripe in the future. So that's another update. And then anyone else who's got any kind of questions or anything, go to the Telegram. That's where all the conversations are. There's a lot of conversations going. Andrea, who is our community manager, she's very active. She does most of the posts on the X page. She also responds to people here, and she's kind of keeping everyone up to date. Look, Dtravel is under new direction now. We are entering a new chapter where we are changing / improving many things, including tokenomics. You see that? And that was directly in response to someone who wrote about the tokenomics, asking about the tokenomics. And that's kind of why I'm talking about the tokenomics today. And soon, look, we will announce the 2026 roadmap, and I'll ping you here for you to stay updated. You see that? There's a lot of things happening, and unfortunately, the same thing that I've always been saying, we just have to give them a little bit of time, a little bit of patience. Yeah. Everything that's gone wrong, you have to kind of look at it like this. There's a lot of things that went right, so I don't want to like destroying the credibility of the previous leadership 100%. Okay. They did end up building a network, a real world network that I think is pretty fantastic. They did end up building this. Yeah. And if you go to Dtravel, you can see that in action. You can actually go to Dtravel. You can actually have a look for yourself. And for travelers, you can travel and you can search. Let's go to Dubai. And this works. This is basically an Airbnb, decentralized Airbnb. And you can search, you can look at the calendars, and you can book, and you can pay. Often you can pay in fiat and crypto, but if not fiat, then probably usually crypto you can pay. So this works. This 100% works. We've had over 10,000 room nights booked. And there, sorry, I wasn't on the right screen. There, you see that? So that's the Dtravel travelers. That's Dubai. And that's the stay. And you can check availability and book that. And we know it works because if you go to Telegram, you go to the general channel. Look, new booking processed. New booking site activated. You see that? And new booking site activated, new booking process. You can see the activity. So every time there's a booking or there's a new booking site activated, there's a message that comes to this channel and you can see that it's working. And these are real world travelers traveling on the Dtravel network. You see that? And so we know it works. And so what I want to say is that now that you're looking at the token and you're freaking out and you're panicking, and I'm not going to do any technical analysis. There's no point, okay, to do technical analysis. You can do all the technical analysis you want. The reality is we're at all-time lows, right? We're trading at 0.2 of a cent or just under. We've put in a lot of volume. We've had a little bit of a sell-up, mainly because of the Bybit ST tag. And fundamentally what we're experiencing is people like that Crypto Steve who commented on my post saying, brother, you're actually crazy, this shit is dead. And what I want to show you is it's not dead. It's not dead. Yeah. What we have is a previous CEO and a previous leadership who implemented a tokenomics that was rejected by the market, and now what we're seeing is a change, a shift. We have a CEO who was in charge of Dtravel when the previous CEO was on maternity leave, and during that period of time the token went up, and now he is implementing his vision for the future. And it's not just one thing. It's not just, hey, let's do the tokenomics and everything's going to be okay. It's tokenomics, it's wellness, it's rewarding wellness or connecting Dtravel to wellness globally. It's restructuring Dtravel and making it into a DAO. It's these new initiatives that we're creating in different parts of the world, and details of that are soon to be announced. And there's a lot more coming. That's something else that that you're going to find out about soon. And when I say soon, I mean I think in the next few weeks, if not in the next month or two. A lot of changes are happening and they're going to be announced, and you'll get the 2026 roadmap as well. So anyway, I just want you guys to be like me, extremely bullish, extremely positive about the future. We're going to turn the ship around. And the other thing is that we can't look at the past and go, okay, everything's going to look gloomy now because of the past. You almost have to ignore the past, or at the very least, understand why the past happened and how the past happened, and understand that Dtravel are learning or have learned from the mistakes of the past and are now changing the course of the ship. The ship is changing and moving in another direction. Everything's changing, right? And so we can talk about the past, and I just wanted to share that with you. Any questions or comments, feel free to post it underneath this video. None of this is financial advice. And as always, I say, if you're going to start accumulating at these prices, which are ridiculously low, then just make sure you implement a strategy like dollar cost averaging using a time weighted average price basis. That's the best way to do this, because then you get the average price. And catching the average price of the lows, it doesn't matter so much exactly what price you get. Like if you get 40% higher, you're still in the lows, you know, and you look at the higher time frame, you still look where you are. The risk is now to the upside, not to the downside. The only way for the risk to be now to the downside is or would be if Dtravel was closing shop. There was no new vision, the leadership hadn't changed, there was no new plan, and everything was going to collapse. And I'm telling you, that's not happening. We're actually turning the corner now. We're changing the direction of the ship, and things are about to get really, but these next 2 months are really important, and I think we're going to pull this one out. And hopefully the community is going to rally behind Eric, it's going to rally behind the team, rally behind Andrea, maybe watch my videos once in a while, and start to accumulate and start to get behind the new Dtravel, the new version of Dtravel. Right. I wish you a great weekend, and until next week, goodbye.